Welcome back to the Prospecting Show. Today is July 8th, 2020. We have Amy Lee on the call. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am awesome. So before the show here, we're just doing some introductions here, and we're talking about funders and founders. So we'll just plug them real quick. Great group set up by Graham Peck and Phil Rader. They are some awesome guys really building out this platform here. So Amy and I are going to jump into that next Thursday. For anyone who ends up listening to this and is a founder or looking for VC money, private equity money, pre-seed, anything like that, reach out at theprospectingshow.com. We'll get you taken care of. But Amy, let's hear the backstory. Let's hear where you started from. Tell us a little bit about the company that you built and how you exited.
All right. Well, I started a company in 2009 from scratch. At the time, I was a teacher teaching third grade, and I, during summer times, was teaching outdoor boot camps as a fitness instructor. So I planned to do my outdoor boot camp season with my crew of maybe 10 or so people. At the time, this small little company called Groupon had just launched. I knew nothing about them. So I saw an ad on Facebook, reached out to them, ended up doing a deal, and bam, overnight, 500 clients. And that's when my business started. So I launched my business in summer of 2009, figured out really quickly how to just have an incredible experience for 500 members. It was so successful that they were like, open an indoor space. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I found a great landlord. I found a 4,000 square foot space in the heart of downtown Chicago in River North. And we opened our doors, made so many mistakes, knew nothing about business, but figured it out. Expanded and moved 3 or 4 years later into an 8,500 square foot facility. It was 4 group fitness studios, and sold my company in 2018. So it was an incredible almost 10-year journey, and I just learned so much along the way. Many ups, many downs, and just overall a thrilling ride. And
that's amazing, right?
In entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's a huge start. I mean, I think it's interesting too. You talk about 10 years of building something. You probably built it not ever expecting to exit it, right? You probably were building it for an idea, for something to do, and then you kind of progressed and actually were able to exit, which a lot of people don't do. When you were starting, you talked about that kind of pivotal moment with Groupon there, and really scaling that up overnight, just like bam, we got a bunch of new customers in the door. Other than that one piece, was there anything else in the business that you thought was like another pivot point or a spot where you're like, man, this is not going well, but we pivoted and now it is going well?
There were, I feel like I want to say infinity amount of pivots throughout my journey as an entrepreneur. But I would say that a big turning point was in about 2014. And that's when group fitness started booming. There was a new spot opening up pretty much on every corner. In 2009, when I opened the business, there was maybe 2 or 3 other group fitness studios in the area. So 2014 is whenever it really took off and competition was everywhere. And it actually helped us. So there was so much more interest, so more people were coming through in trials and converting over to members. But it really, really forced me to just always try to stay at least one step ahead of the competition, constantly be evolving, coming up with new products. I know recovery is a huge element in the fitness industry. We were one of the first group fitness studios in 2014 to introduce like a recovery area with Normatec boots and just overall incorporate a lot of recovery into our programming. So a big turning point would have been 2014 with the competition. It just really forced me to be on my A++ game and stay ahead of everyone else in the area.
Yeah, and so when you did that, right, you guys built that out and started scaling up, where were some of the pieces that were bottlenecks in the business? I know a lot of people talk about this, the highs and the lows and the wins and the losses, but nobody really talks about like the part that actually pinches down and it's like, we can't scale because of this thing. So what kind of things did you have in the business that prevented you from growing or had that bottleneck that where you couldn't get out of it?
I would say that one of the bottlenecks initially was just my lack of business experience. So I had to teach myself everything. And fortunately, I have a family of whether it's entrepreneurs or just, having an MBA. So I utilize their experience and background and knowledge to grow the business. But initially, it was really just making so many mistakes because I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea, like, from an accounting standpoint, who to hire, how to set that up, how to set up payroll and everything, like all of the back end stuff. So in terms of setting up a business, it's just developing those turnkey systems and processes. Initially, for the first year or two, it was just a hot mess. It was all over the place. But after about the second year in business, I started really learning, how to go about doing things and putting together turnkey processes. So, it just overall made things run way more efficiently, and we were able to scale faster.
Yeah. And so what, in your organizational chart, where did you sit? Were you sitting as CEO, or were you doing ops or technology or what or CFO? Like, what kind of role did you actually hold in the company?
I dabbled in a little bit of everything. So I was a CEO, but not only did I work on the business, but I also worked in the business. So I was the one teaching 20 plus classes a week. When we started with the boot camps, I was teaching the classes. When we opened the indoor spot, I was cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the showers, and so I was doing a little bit of everything. But quite frankly, I wouldn't have had it any other way, because that is just the best way to really learn all the ins and outs of your business and create all of those turnkey systems and processes that otherwise I would have had no idea how to do.
Yeah, and you got to the point where you did the exit too, which is really key, right? A lot of people, like I said before, they build up and they don't actually get to that point. So talk a little bit about the exit that you did, and then also, where you kind of catapulted into today. Because I know you talked a little bit before the call on your consulting that you're doing, but then also a new startup that you have. So tell us a little bit about the back half of the last one.
So in 2014, I got married, and we went on our honeymoon to Colorado. And I've been there many times, but both of us were like, we have to live here. Like, it was our calling. We have to live here. So, we own this business in Chicago. My husband came in as a business partner in about 2012. So we own this business in Chicago, and it's going really well. We have an incredible staff, an incredible team that we trust wholeheartedly, but we want to live in Colorado. So we took this crazy leap and moved to Colorado whenever we owned the business in Chicago. But it was a crazy decision, but it worked out because I was able to really focus on growing the business without working in it, and just focus on working on it. And our revenue, which is crazy, it multiplied. So we ended up making so much more. And obviously, having a presence there is not ideal. So in about 2016, 2017, we started looking for buyers, and we've interviewed so many different buyers, and there was a few that we were potentially going to move forward with, but we were really looking for someone who was going to continue growing the business in the way that they were going to not only take care of our staff and allow them to grow their careers, but then also take care of my baby, and almost like adopt my baby. So with that being said, we found a couple that were so passionate about just fitness in general, and they were just really good people. And the first conversation, we just knew it was meant to be. And beginning of 2018, the deal went through, and I adopted my first child.
That's amazing. So where did you go from there, right? I mean, that's the part that it's like that pivot is super duper important, right? Because a lot of people will sell a business and they go, I'm going to take a year off or whatever it is. And everyone has a different approach. But what did you do when that deal was finally closed up?
So made a lot of mistakes after I sold the business. So initially, my intention was to sell the business and then open another location in Colorado. and turn it into a franchise. So we leased a spot in Colorado, in Westminster, Colorado, and it opened about 6 months after I sold the Chicago location. And it just ended up being a really bad location. I realized that my passion just wasn't there anymore. It wasn't whenever I first started the business in 2009 to opening this new location in 2018. It was just a different experience. I felt differently about it. So ended up deciding, you know what, we're gonna take a loss here and shut it down. So by the end of 2018, we shut that business down, and it was not easy by any means, because not only, you know, are we taking a financial loss, but we also have to get out of a lease. So that was a whole process, but lots of learning that happened from there. And so once all of that was over with in the beginning of 2009, it was time to jump into the corporate world and find my way in the corporate world. And it took a long time, because it was basically like everyone at my age has been in the corporate world for, you know, almost 20 years. And here I am, like, I'm starting fresh. So had a few different jobs, learned a lot, just wasn't necessarily the right fit. I finally landed a great role at a well-known company that has been affected by COVID-19. So I got furloughed in April of 2020. And with that being said, I instantly started applying for jobs, and I was getting turned away because, you know, there were so many applicants applying for the same position, or there's just the standard thanks but no thanks email, we found another candidate. So I just became really frustrated with the traditional hiring process. And with that being said, I started questioning, why is the current hiring process solely based on somebody's resume? And then I was wondering, well, if somebody had the opportunity to pitch themselves in 30 seconds or less, would the outcome be different? So I voiced all my frustrations to two of my favorite people, and then my new company, PitchOff, was born. We are launching PitchOff in probably Q4 of 2020. We're going to be launching our join our waitlist site very soon. And so basically with PitchOff, it's a Netflix-style video platform and designed for job seekers, hiring managers, and recruiters. So job seekers can be seen, be heard, and get hired via 30-second elevator pitches, and HR managers and recruiters can have some fun while finding the perfect fit. And PitchOff is basically redefining the traditional hiring process, giving it a modern day facelift. And like I said, we plan to launch in Q4 2020. And once we have the tech built, which we're currently building, there's so many different applications for its use, but there's just a lot of awesome potential, and I'm incredibly passionate about it. And then secondarily, I got this amazing consulting role with this awesome company. I feel so fortunate to be working at this company because I finally found a place where they see my experience, recognize my value, and it has just been an awesome experience. So I will be doing both of these concepts and just doing them, you know, in a way that I'm just so passionate about both, and everything works out for a reason. So
yeah,
this is my new path.
For sure, right? And if you look at the direction that PitchOff is going, I mean, I know you're really not that far away from, you know, development, because you're talking Q4 this year, and we're in, what are we in now? We're in July, middle of July here. And, you know, we come from a background of recruitment, right? My parents have been in recruiting for 20 years, and probably what you're talking about is actually something that most recruiters are talking about now. Is it's not just the resume, right? You can't just hire off of resumes. You have to hire off of, you know, past experience, skill sets, resume, maybe where people went to school and their technical skills, maybe based on other companies they worked for, passion, you know, what their goals are, personal and vocational goals. And so if you can bring all that into a 30-second pitch with some supplementary on the side, like, hey, here are the specs or the highlights of this individual. Now you get that 30-second boom. Hey, this is the person, this is what they do. But you also get on the other side of it, these are all the specs on that person, so that you can get kind of the qualitative and the quantitative and the actual subjective piece and put it all together. So I think that that's going to be a huge advantage. what do you see the rollout looking like for this company? So you have recruiters that'll come to the platform, job seekers, companies that have jobs all coming to the platform. What, how's that going to work? What's the structure kind of going to be like?
Well, this is a new space for me, and it's also a new space for the other co-founders that I'm working with. So we're learning a lot. We're doing a lot of market research as well. So initially, when we roll it out, it's going to be a free platform. It will always be free for job seekers. We want to make an impact, especially right now with the amount of people that have been furloughed and laid off due to COVID. So our initial launch will be this free platform. Obviously, it's not going to be free forever, but since we don't have enough knowledge in this space yet, we're going to use it as a test to really figure out the different ways that we can monetize it. And on top of that, we are launching this business, of course, like we want to eventually make money from it, but it's a passion project. And my personal belief is that's how I launched my business in 2009. It was all passion. And clearly, I knew nothing about business. That's how this business is going to be launched. And we're just going to get as much feedback as possible and figure out the best ways that we can monetize it that makes sense for everybody. Just in speaking with several HR companies and recruiters about the platform, we have interest with a big recruiting company to partner with us already. I'm like, well, let's get launched first. But so there's already interest, which is exciting. But we're just going to play it by ear and just get feedback and then decide the direction that we want it to go.
Yeah, no, and that makes tons of sense, right? Because at the end of the day, the product market fit is one of the things that's kind of difficult for businesses to figure out early on, especially a SaaS tech style business where it's like, well, how is it monetized? Who pays for it? Who doesn't? What's the platform? What's the system? Right. Like all those pieces have to come together in one way. And I think, like, to your point, you're going to develop that over time. It's not going to be tomorrow that you're going to have all the information, right? But what is the goal, like in your mind? How will this change the recruitment or hiring process? Is it going to shorten it? Is it going to make it more accurate? Is it like what's the actual kind of value around the platform that you think is the best fit for it?
In terms of the hiring process and how it could potentially change things, our vision is for it to like enhance the current process, but then also change it in a sense where it's not so traditional anymore. It's a modernized hiring process. Of course, we can use those traditional elements within it, but there's also that element of let's make this so it's kind of with all of the involvement of video these days, all this involvement of tech. We're going to be at the forefront of that with this new hiring process. But we also want to bring in those traditional elements too, and even be able to link to these different platforms that companies are using. The applicant tracking systems will create APIs to integrate. So there will be, I guess, a combination of both, but we want to almost recreate the hiring process and make it more savvy for people who are looking for jobs, because I don't have the data yet, but it could potentially be different if people had the opportunity to pitch themselves first and then the resume comes next. So, we're not looking to add more time to people's plates whenever, or HR managers and recruiters' plates when it comes to finding applicants, but we want to allow job seekers to really be seen and be heard as they're applying for jobs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that integration, like you said, with the other platforms, right? Like the Zohos and the Crelates and all these hiring platforms, Salesforce that people are using to actually build the business. I think it's absolutely critical that you have that, because the integration piece is the piece that's going to hold and glue everything together. And if you can't do that, then it becomes very problematic, because then people, have another tool. So I think it's really cool that you guys are already at the very beginning, before it's even launched, you're thinking about integration with these other tools. So I think that's going to be very useful. And I think changing recruitment and changing hiring is such a big thing, right? It's like there's so many people. Even though right now the world seems like it's on fire, there's thousands of jobs that are sitting vacant right now. There's tons of people that haven't fulfilled roles. And that part of that reason is because the hiring managers don't have an easy process to look at 10,000 candidates for one role and pick the right person. So they kind of get this analysis by paralysis. They don't have an executive recruiter or somebody on the outside that's actually doing all the legwork. And so they're just sitting there going like, I have no idea what to do, right? And that makes it very difficult to move the needle forward. If we had 100 people without jobs and 100 jobs and we could match them together, that would be a perfect situation. But we all know that the skills and the experience and all the other pieces have to line up for that to work. So in your mind, what do you see the future being for you guys? I know you're really early on with this, but where do you see the future going?
There's just so many different ways to evolve this platform. So we can evolve it with what it currently is, with the idea, with the HR managers and the job seekers and the recruiters. We can also evolve it into, let's say, a shoe company. They want to showcase like 30 different new types of shoes. So there's a lot of uses once we have the tech built for it that can be used with this platform that we're building. But at the end of the day, what we want to do with it is just be impactful. So however we evolve it, there's going to be just a very good way to like evolve it, that it's for the greater good. It's not just like, we're going to make billions of dollars with this company. Like, we want to have a greater good reason to evolve it into however it's going to evolve.
Yeah, and I think that's the purpose over money kind of concept, right? There has to be a higher purpose and a higher goal, other than just like, hey, we're going to be a transactional business. We bring people to the table, we fill roles. Like, that's like standard kind of recruitment. But you guys are taking it above and beyond and going to the next level. And I think a lot of that comes down to the way you design the platform, the way the user interface is, the way that the team is built up. And I think you guys have a great idea in place, and there is really no one in this space yet, right? This is an idea. Everyone knows this is a problem. It's just nobody's really solved it yet, right? Recruiters know that people who are hiring managers in companies don't know what they're doing in terms of hiring, because they just look at resumes and say yay or nay, and that's a terrible way to hire. The people that are in companies and don't have hiring managers, they don't know how to find the right candidates. And the candidate experience is terrible, like you talked about, where you just get an email back that's like, oh yeah, we're not interested, right? There needs to be a workflow of, hey, you're in this stage, right? And as people say yes or no, you can either go to declined, or you can go to hired, and you can kind of start progressing down this pathway of, yes, we like you, your resume looks good, let's chat, pick a time, and it kind of goes out on the platform.
That's precisely what we're working on, because myself included, I've gone through so many hiring processes with companies where I just don't hear back from them for weeks, or they go silent, or they just never respond. I take 30 minutes or an hour to do an interview and then like never hear from them again. Yeah. So we're creating processes, and this goes back into my previous business, just making everything as turnkey as possible, where job seekers, it's a win-win situation for everybody. They're not just sitting there and waiting for a response. And of course, as a job seeker, you have to have thick skin, because you're going to get way more no's than yeses. Yeah. But we're going to create everything that you just mentioned, which are excellent ideas, by the way, and we're already working on and building to make it so it's just a win-win, not only for job seekers, but also for HR managers and recruiters.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's 100% the most important part. One of the things we like to do on the show is ask you, for people who want to learn more about you and kind of what you're doing and maybe the company, I know it's still early, what is the best way for them to reach you? Is it email? Is it, Facebook, LinkedIn? Is there their website? How can people reach out?
I would love for people to reach out. I always welcome any new connections and conversations. So to reach out, we have our social media accounts for PitchOff. So PitchOff30 is our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can just find us at PitchOff, YouTube. To reach out to me personally, our website is pitchoff30.com, and it will, as of July, in the next week, probably by the time this podcast launches, we'll have our coming soon, where people can just subscribe to get more information, pitchoff30.com. And of course, please connect with me, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Amy Lee. And if you search PitchOff Amy Lee, I think that you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn.
Sure. Makes sense. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I know we try to keep these episodes short and kind of focused around what you're doing and how you're helping the future here. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for explaining about Pitch Off. For those of you who are listening to the Prospecting Show, we're recording this on July 8th, but hopefully in 2 weeks, this podcast is out, 2 weeks or less, and Pitch Off will be live. So check it out, pitchoff30.com, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Connor. Such a pleasure.
Thank you.